So if everyone's here, would it upset you if we got started? I said, I think everyone's here, and so would it upset anyone if we got started 2 minutes early? All right, we will call the meeting to order, and we need a motion to excuse Wayne. Hubie will make that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And the minutes of July 11th. Anne-Marie? Anne-Marie moves to adopt. No problems with that. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Post-agenda items. I just emailed you a request for a teleconference or a meeting in regards to Halo's precarious position at the present time, and I would just like to get your ideas on that before the conference call or whatever it is on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. Any other post-agenda items? Kevin.
Madam Reeve, I just have one legal in camera, please.
Okay. Brian?
Just wondered if we could get an update on some other post agendas from previous land one.
Would that be in camera? Yes. Okay, so we'll put land down as well, you bet. Anything else? Move to adopt the agenda. Tracy will do that. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Question period? No notice of motion, no ratepayers. All right, we'll move on to Ag Service. Will, number 8. Good morning.
No, it's not on yet. There you go.
And then the talk button.
Yes, good morning.
Okay.
It's enough to scare you away.
It is, yes.
Just look for the red light.
So anyways, filling in for Todd again. So he did supply me with his report for July of 2019. So I'm just going to read it out to you as he wrote it out. So with the extremely dry start to the year, we moved our spraying start date up a bit and got a few miles in during the early part of June. Wind hampered a bit of our progress, and we only really got some short days in, but they served as great training for Howard's first year in the spray truck. We are finished the roadside spraying now as of the 19th in the south half of the county, and picking up a few problem spots over the next little while. So we think we are ahead of the game on the 2018 shoulder pull project roads, spraying them with the one-ton truck that we set up this winter. So that was used if the big trucks weren't going to be able to get there in time. We hope we put any neighboring landowners at ease. Our roadside mowers, we crossed the north side of the number 1 highway over to the south side on the 16th of July, and we expect to be done the first pass of the roads in early August. Some sporadic rain events, so we may get more regrowth in some areas, more so than other areas. We are prepared to run the water truck again if necessary. And after what I seen yesterday, it might be necessary soon. We've had a good weed inspection year. The crew has been able to find some new sites, which sounds easy, but if you're not actively looking for something, it can be difficult to train your eyes. So we did find some knapweed in the village of Dutchess that we sprayed out. We found some hound's tongue in the Bassano area, and we have controlled that. Veg management techs are led by Catherine, and they have been quite the benefit to the program. Not everyone can be excited about weeds and weed control, but I'm confident we are just a little bit out of the ordinary. So the river was another different battle this season. The late June rains in the mountains raised the water level on the Bow, but not enough to breach many banks. Most of the weeds we fought were not scentless chamomile, although chamomile remains persistent on some flats. We have been battling burdock, yellow toadflax, common tansy, black henbane, and plumeless thistle. So, unfortunately, we didn't have the greatest interest in the rural beautification program this season, and then we had some harsh weather, so decided to put it back on the burner for 2019. Rental equipment. So our drills haven't done too bad. Our conventional drill, we've only had 9 producers this year who seeded 1,095 acres. The no-till drills, we have 32 users that seeded 2,127 acres. The Brillions, 3 renters seeding 186 acres, and they're still both out now doing pivot corners and little odd jobs. Livestock equipment, the scale, 2 renters and 2 4-H clubs using the scale. The chute and panels, we had 3 rentals, and the calf table, 2 rentals. Strychnine, 111 purchasers purchased 1,538 bottles of strychnine. Magpie trap, we sold 1. Skunk, we've had 4 renters for 103 rental days. Excuse me. Our sprayers, so the weed wipes, we've had 2 rentals. 3-point hitch sprayer, we've had 3 rentals, and our insecticide sprayer, we've had 1 rental. And the barbecue, busy as usual, 18 rentals plus the county functions plus rodeo week. So that's been a hit right from the get-go. Emerson Bridge Park has been having a good season. Weekends continue to be active, and during the week a little slower. Although this week they were doing really well through the week. So it would be great to be full consistently, but it's nice to have some slower times to do maintenance of all the facilities and grounds without the added pressure of people around. So our community maintenance has been doing really well. The season crew makes it look easy, and they really care about what they do and the people they serve. Those are qualities you cannot teach. It speaks volumes to the caliber of the individuals we have on our team. And we did receive 1 phone call from a landowner that he found what he thought was clubroot in one of his fields. After testing, it turned out it was clubroot. So now we have a confirmed case of clubroot between Rosemary and Duchess. Todd has had the conversations with the landowner, and we'll be working together to come up with some plans for future and, of course, following policy. It's been a great season so far, and excited to tackle what is coming up. Clubroot survey, grasshopper surveys, bacterial ring rot surveys, and whatever else we need to do. So that is Todd's report.
Thanks, Will. Questions? Lionel?
So where was the fire yesterday?
I seen one at the aqueduct, and then when I was going home last night, I did see another one further out in that corner of the county, and I guess there was a big one by Suffield. So, and I think the one at the aqueduct, I seen the EID mower sitting there, so I'm not sure if that happened or not. But we do have our water truck ready to go now, and we'll make that call soon if we need to have it sitting around with our mowers.
Oh, that was quite the wind. Tracy?
I'm just wondering about the strychnine. I don't know, I don't necessarily need to know last year's numbers, but has strychnine been a big sell this year? Because the gopher population is big.
Absolutely, yes. Gophers were just a out of control this year. That's the biggest numbers of gophers we've seen for a very long time. And crops are coming out of the ground and the gophers are picking them just as fast as they germinate. It's not so bad now, the crops are growing, but and shooting didn't seem to work for people. There was just too many. You can't spend that much time shooting gophers, and they get a little disheartened when the crop is coming up and you lose 5, 10, 15 acres to gophers. So.
Other questions? How's the Downey Brome situation?
The Downey Brome,
About the same?
it's about the same. It's mature now, so anything we find now we need to pick. It's past the point of spraying. Anything that we have sprayed, we keep an eye on because, as soon as it gets the rain on, you can get a second flush for the year. I wouldn't say that it's growing a whole bunch. The areas are still there, and it's just, it's tough to manage. Yeah.
All right, well, I see no questions, so sorry, Brian.
Sorry, late question when you start talking about weeds. The last time Todd reported that you guys were just doing some talks with Alberta Transportation about spraying the number 1 highway. Did you end up doing that, or did we get that contract?
We did spray the number 1 highway, and we did spray the Highway 36 from the number 1 to the Bow River. The number 1 we sprayed from the Duchess Overpass to Bassano. And we sprayed the median and the outside ditches. So, yeah. And Todd, he did give me a warning that someone might bring up the 100-year farm awards. So that's what's in the bag I brought up in here. There's probably a few council in here that have not seen the award that will be presented. The 100-year award is for, farms that have been around for 100 years. Anybody can nominate them for the award, or they can nominate themselves. They have to prove it on their own that they have been farming or ranching for 100 years in the county without any expense to the county. And then divisional councillor would present the award to them. So if I may, I'll just pull this out of the bag, and those that haven't seen, if you would like to see, I can just leave it here and pick it up at the end of the day if you would like. Will that work? I'll just set it back here, and thank you if that's good.
Thanks, Will. And there is information on the 100-year farm awards too, something that when Brian talked about it at the end of our last council meeting to me, I said, geez, we haven't talked about it for years, so it's on the agenda there. Brian.
Yeah, and this came to light with Phil Potts, our nominee for the Farm Family, the BMO Farm Family Award in Calgary. They have been operating in our community. This is the 100th year, their anniversary year. So I was curious as to what our process was, and I pulled out this policy, but I wasn't too familiar with it. I was trying to think of Molly and Anne Marie. You've been here a few years longer than me. I don't remember how many we've had. So, you guys?
No. We had the Irwins, and Alan Eastman's family. I remember him talking about that they've been in the area for 100 years, but because he was a councillor, we didn't nominate him, but I've sent him the information, so if really his family is 100 years, I'm sure he'll look after it.
Yeah, and like with Phil Potts too, I mean, their original business was in the city, what is City Brooks property now. I don't know if that perimeter had changed over the time. They moved out to where they're current place isn't 75, but I guess if you look at the definition within the county of Newell, it's, if you consider Brooks within the county of Newell, I guess it does apply, but I think it's a worthy, there's so few 100 farm families, it's, I think it would be remiss on us not to at least consider something in that regards, so. Is there a plaque or something that goes with that, Will, or are you aware of that?
Yes, I was just looking at the clock, and it doesn't look like there's a space for the plaque unless you take the glass off and maybe you can attach it to the face of the clock itself. So I'm not sure what we would do that if we get another plaque and they'd have to mount it underneath the clock or something. So, but these, we've got the 3 clocks, and I think it's about 10 years ago, maybe we purchased them, I think, for this. Maybe even a little longer, but yeah, we've still got the 3 of them. Yeah.
Anne-Marie, here.
Come to think of it, this Irwin Award, it was 100 years, but not necessarily this award. It had something to do with the
Province.
Yeah.
And that the provincial guidelines are also there. And that's sometimes where people run into a bit of trouble because it has to be the same land or something. There's a bit of a technicality, I believe, with the provincial one. I think ours is not quite as technical. I just don't ever remember presenting anybody when Brian asked about it. So Todd would know. He would remember. Brian?
So I would like to make a motion that we participate in this as per policy. I mean, we have the gift. Even if something that we put on the outside at the bottom on the glass and leave it to somebody that's a little bit more artistically in tune than me, that acknowledges the Philpotts for their business in our area.
So do we need to get them to source this information through land titles and stuff after we do this?
Okay. Well,
Like, I don't know. I'm asking. The way it reads there, that's the policy guideline.
We should follow policy, so you're absolutely right. And that certainly, I can follow through on that.
Okay.
I have connections to them, so.
Yeah. And then we can take her from there. Sound good? All right. Any other questions on that? Thank you, Will. Okay, we'll just keep going forward. 9.1, the tax sale, setting a date for that. Lane?
This is just an annual process that we need to go through and need to confirm the date and the conditions that Shannon has outlined.
Need a motion to do that. Kelly moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And 9.2, the meeting with our MLA, and I'm curious, are there lots of you going to be able to attend? Yeah? Well, that's good. Nice to have as many people there as possible, I think, to ask questions, to show interest, and to help her understand the seriousness of this issue. And then there was also the letter for your information, and so I think we should have a motion to, I just want to get it approved, that it was okay. We're going to be visiting with her anyhow, so if there's stuff that's been missed or she needs more explanation on, we'll be able to do that. And I think, Clarence, you spoke to her, she sort of wanted something she could take to her minister as well, right?
She just wanted some backup information that she could use to illustrate how, it was affecting the two counties and her municipalities in her jurisdiction. So.
And Kevin has not received, or our staff haven't received any more information. And Kevin, you commented yesterday that you feel it will be some time before we get more information.
We haven't really got a pin deadline from the province yet, but they went back out to the companies, and the companies have to provide the list of the wells, and we got 14,000 here, so I think it's going to take into August for sure, probably till the end of August before we get officially the numbers back, and we can't really assume it'll be all of them, or so we'll just have to wait to hear back.
So we're just sort of waiting, I guess. Yeah. Any other questions or comments on that? I do plan to give the Reeve or Deputy Reeve of Cyprus a call just to see what they're up to, but I think our Foothills Little Bowl group are also possibly getting together, so we'll take it as it comes, I guess. All right. Did we pass the motion on the acceptance of that letter? No. Okay. Somebody move. Lionel's moving approval, and all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Item 9.3 is a letter. Another letter, and we did always like to bring these letters to council as requested by the ratepayer, who this time has asked for, he doesn't need a reply, but we can reply, I suppose, if we wish. So I take direction from anyone who would have an opinion or a different idea about this. It's important that these letters come to you folks. Anybody?
We want to say anything because we might have to write it.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think you just have them over for supper like I do. That's why he said I don't need a reply. Easily. Certainly I can do something if you want me to, Anne-Marie.
Well, if you happen to see him, then I'm not sure if I speak for everyone, but I appreciated his letter, so you could maybe pass that on.
We sure could do that. And I could do that in a note and a visit, whatever, because I will see him. Sounds good. County meetings on regionalization, item 9.4. And this, I think, came out of our regional working group. And of course, we have responded to the, what's the other group? County Residents Against Regionalization, for the questions, that the statements that they're making in the paper. Our regional working group have responded to those, and I haven't read this week's bulletin. Are there more? Yes. So we meet again on Wednesday, and we're just viewing it as an opportunity to try and get the facts out, and really hope that people would listen to the facts. And we have become aware that there are meetings being held by this group, and I know there was one in Wayne's division, and last night, and he was away. He was planning to do his own meeting when he returned, but this was a meeting. A meeting called by the group against regionalization. So I guess we just wanted to have a visit about what councillors feel. I mean, we are going to be able to get out in October is our hope. And if there is a need, we've said, I think, last council meeting that if there's a group of people that want to get together and talk to you about what the facts are, if you need any help with that, regional working group committee members could attend that. And so we just wanted to put this on the agenda, and Clarence and Kevin can add to my comments, just so people are aware that that's an option, certainly ahead of October. Tracy?
I guess, so you had mentioned October would be when we would be going out to the public again with more information.
That's
Kind of
the
the plan
plan.
now.
Our next meeting this coming week, I believe our financial departments are presenting at, right, Kevin? It's a slow process to get all this stuff, all the information. We want to have it accurate for people, and this is what people asked for. And so, yeah, October is the target date. You know, and I was just thinking today driving in from the lake, it was interesting how I think our motion that we passed was to, you know, basically have discussions on the topic of regionalization. And that's what we're doing. So it seems like a long process when other people are sort of getting involved in a different way. But it's slow and steady, and we've got to be thorough. So, anyhow. Other comments or concerns or questions? Ellen?
So the fall meetings, are there going to be how many? I've heard a rumor, perhaps 3 I've read before. We had 6 prior, but we don't know yet how many we're going to have? Okay.
It has not been decided.
Okay.
We haven't got dates. We haven't got dates. We're not there yet. Kevin?
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think it would be good for us to have a meeting with our ratepayers at some point before we get to the fall meeting, to get some input from their perspective on what they'd like to see at the fall meetings. If there are things that the working group aren't working on, then the sooner that we can find that, the better. I've had a number of calls on people that really think that the County of Newell can bail out of this process at any given time. And I said that we can't. If we don't negotiate these ICFs in good faith and be at the table, then it puts us in a pretty difficult position. If we do back away and there's an application made by one of the municipalities for amalgamation officially to the minister, then we're at the table. We have to be at the table. We have to support a position on one way or the other, and then the minister makes a decision. And I think that's a really dangerous way to consider a change like this, is to allow one department to or one minister to make the call on things that are so important to a group. So the county doesn't hold the trump card in this. The county has to be they're forced to be at the table. But at the end of the day, it is a review process, and it may go nowhere. We may finish up and then start to determine who's going to provide the service and who's going to pay for it. So I think there's a couple things that, you know, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of stuff festering out there, and I think that it would be good to not have a back and forth session, but to get information from people and make sure that it's clarified that everybody understands that we can't back away. We're not Rosemary. Rosemary doesn't have to have an ICF with Brooks. Rosemary doesn't have to have an ICF with Dutchess. So they have the option. We have to have an ICF with all of them. And so yeah, that's what I think, is that we should look at possibly before October is having just a special meeting that we can get and everybody can discuss it.
of county residents, yeah. Yeah, sometimes in all of this, we get lost that idea of the fact that we have to get these intercollaboration frameworks accomplished. And that sort of was it's part of the underpinning of this, although can be separate as well. So, yeah, that can't be forgotten. Anything else? Brian and Kelly.
So if I'm thinking of the timing, about what you're suggesting, Kevin, I would, if we're looking at an October type meetings for the regional working group, what would be a realistic time to engage your county residents so that you could provide any information back at that regional meeting that comes up with those? Because it can't really be fair to our administration to have a meeting. I'm just going to throw a day 15th of September and then come back for an October meeting, unprepared, I guess is the name. So I'm looking to what's a realistic time frame for this all to sort of flow.
Yeah, I think sometime in September would be sufficient after the summer harvest may be through. I don't think there's going to be a lot of stuff that comes back that the committee hasn't worked on. So there may be some things, and there's a whole pile of things that won't be able to be answered because that's going to have to be part of the formation if it ever does happen. But so I would think towards the end of September would be a good time frame. And I don't know how many we would have, whether we would just go out and do them in the hamlets or just have one bigger one. I don't know what's best, probably smaller meetings, I don't know.
Kelly.
So for me, it sounds risky. And you have to remember how the first Bassano meeting went. That was not an information, there was no information exchanged. It was a lot of questions asked and so I know a lot of residents there are looking for answers. And for us to go back out and ask more questions, I think they would be disappointed. I truly think that they're at the point now, they've either made up their mind, so we have to now provide answers to their questions in hopes of turning them around, or they're still open to the option. But they are looking for answers in my area, I'll promise you that.
Yeah, and I think we don't want to take over what the actual public meetings are going to be, but there's really going to be two options for county ratepayers. And that's when we get into these agreements and we have to pay for services that are existing on top of what we're paying for today. There's two options. Either we find the efficiencies and we can do it more affordably, or we charge back to the ratepayers to pay it. Because they're going to have an option, right? If you want to stay standalone, which they may want, it's going to come with a cost. And as long as everybody's comfortable with that, they may provide that feedback.
So that is information that they didn't receive. You remember the meeting?
Yep.
Yeah. So that is good information that they would gain from that. I think outlining the agenda very clearly would be really important, and having a clear message ahead of time about what the meeting is about.
Yeah.
I think that would be absolute.
Yep. And I would agree. And the things that I'm hearing is that there's a lot of people that aren't scared of more costs and more taxes. That they would put that ahead of making a change. So I think that's important. And there's other people that say, we have to have lower taxes. It's too high now. And so you can't have it both ways, right? Unless, they decide that they really want to cut back services, which I don't think that'll be the case from what I'm hearing. But anyway, that's just something to think about. whether it would be beneficial or not. I'm just throwing the idea out.
Anne Marie?
I'm still a little bit confused about these meetings. Like we're going to have open houses in October with all the information that we have gathered over the year. Now you have individual meetings in communities, and if people want to get together and talk about it, that's great. But if there's a couple in different areas, do I, as a councillor, initiate one in Patricia because people hear about meetings that are going on, or do I just wait until people organize it themselves and then get clearance to come and answer all the questions? What do we do with these ad hoc meetings?
Well, I think the meetings that I was referring to, it would be like what Wayne is doing at the request just of some of his residents who want information about what's going on regionally. That was my concept, Anne Marie. The other meetings we have nothing to do with. I mean, unless we're invited to them.
No, but I understood that. But
Okay.
the meeting that Wayne has, Kevin, you might want to go. I hear someone say Clarence might go to answer questions. So now they become almost like semi-formal. And do we only have them in certain areas and not in other areas? Like, where do we step in or not? I mean, if people want to get together to talk about it, fine. But as soon as you have staff going to those meetings or somebody from the working group, the regional working group, then it becomes more formal.
Yeah. Which I think is fine. I don't quite know how to, yeah. I guess I just think if people want information and there's a group of them and a councillor wants to, that councillor feels as though they can't answer the questions. I don't know, is that too wishy-washy? Clarence?
Well, I think you played by ear a little bit. I mean, I've always told people in my division that if they have an issue, they want a meeting, get the people together, I'll come. And I think all of us are that way. So if it's initiated by residents, and it can be as simple as, we all talk to people all the time and they say, well, maybe we should get a few people together and talk about this. Well, there's nothing wrong with showing up. And that's about as informal as it gets sometimes, but it's just another step along the way. It's a little more formal, but we never want to get into a situation where people have questions and we don't try to answer them. If we don't know the answer, we can say that and can get other people to come in and help you, but other than that, I don't know.
Tracy and Lionel?
I think that sort of the one thing that's confusing, or that, I don't know how you present it, but it's the confusion between regionalizations with the ICFs and amalgamation. And a lot of people aren't understanding that the ICFs are mandated, that that's something that we have to do. And it's a kind of a cross, because it sort of does go hand in hand, but the amalgamation component of it is different than the ICFs. And I think that's something that we need to get out there a little bit, because I don't think that that's being understood. And to me, there's a lot of confusion with that, because to most people, they're one and the same. And so then there's the confusion about we're being forced or not, and the county can back out, like Kevin said. Well, on the ICFs, we can't back out. So, I mean, that was, in the paper that too, that concern about that. So that's just something in my mind that I think that with all of us, if there's some way we can explain that a little bit more and get that information out, because that is confusing to people. And we have to do a better job of saying these ICFs are mandated. This is, we're not dreaming this up. this is something we have to do, so.
Very good point, Tracy. ICFs are mandated, regionalization is not. Regionalization could be one solution to the ICFs, but it is not the only one. And Kevin's point, I think, this morning was that if people understand that what we're looking for is not to have to raise taxes, we're looking at how we could be more efficient through amalgamation, because we have to do those ICFs and they're going to cost us money as well, one way or the other, right? Wonder how that'll come out in the paper, Sandra. Clarence, or Lionel, sorry.
Sandra's the crasher of all this.
Well, I think it's very important that we do get in touch with the public, because a lot of the movement today is being fueled by misinformation or information that they made up themselves. And we know that. And somehow, even if we don't have all the answers today, just to maybe dispel some of those rumors that they're basing their opinions on, I think would be of benefit. It won't maybe change a lot of minds, but at least maybe appease some people's fears. And
Lionel, what you're saying is if someone phones you and you say to them, you know what, if you're confused and you got a few other people that are confused, let's meet for coffee and I'll give you some answers.
Yeah, and I've had a number of calls, and it's surprising how just with a little bit of confidence from myself that they changed their opinion somewhat. I'm not saying they changed 100%, but they were less afraid of this whole concept after I talked to them. And yeah.
Yeah, and further to what Tracy was saying, I found that ICFs, what does exactly mean? They don't realize the service levels. We know exactly what we need to deal with, and that they understand it. They just don't understand what ICF means, And I think if that's clearly explained, what is exactly mandatory, because exactly there's so much confusion out there. They just don't understand it.
I think our regional working group can certainly do some work on that very point. Right, Clarence?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important that people understand the process. And from the county's point of view, from our perspective, there's, and I can't remember which came first, but I think the ICFs came first. But we also were given by management a pretty big number that we couldn't ignore of savings if we did this in the most efficient way possible. And those two things together, we would be irresponsible not to look at trying to do it as efficiently as possible. People may say we'd like to pay more, but everybody has a number that they got to realize that some of this just doesn't make sense. And what we are in the process of doing right now is to substantiating those numbers. The numbers are too small at the end of the day, we'll probably go with the ICS. If the numbers are substantial enough, I think, and if people will, you also have the added thing, you have to get people to believe that. But we as a council really don't have a choice, because if our management comes back and says, here's our picture of what is, if we do this, not in the ICF way, but in a more amalgamated, regionalized concept, in a very as efficiently as possible way. Here's what we have on the table every single year, and how many roads can that build, and how many services can that provide? Or is it just a matter of matching what we're losing in income? it's all very easy to say, you know, we're willing to pay a little more. But, you know, we've been faced at the county level, and we've been saying it for years, there's not going to be any more money coming from the province. And that's true. But there's also now, we can see the possibility where things we probably didn't think were going to happen is that our income stream is also being attacked. And where do we replace that? What we're trying to do is to replace that through a more efficient structure to deliver the same types of things as we are today. And if we don't get that structure, this is probably what it's going to cost us. And, you know, I think it's very, very important that people get their heads around that. But it's very, very difficult for the general public to understand where those savings really are. It's very, very difficult. It's even difficult for around this table sometimes to understand that. So it's a very long process. It's got to be a thorough process. And when we do get out, and I think it's important for people to understand what's driving it. And it's both of those factors. One is some of it's mandated, but there are better ways to do it than what is being mandated. And we just haven't figured out how much those dollars are yet. And at the end of the day, those numbers will be coming forth. They may not be as detailed as some people like, because some of it has to do with staff and things of that nature. But the numbers will be there, and they will be substantial. And then it's time to make a decision, and not before. So I think it's important for our regional group to make sure that we let people know where the process is at. There is a process. And it's good that people are involved, but it's a little bit, to me, disturbing that people won't let you finish the process, or are they willing to hear the end of that process, to make decisions on facts, to make decisions on what's reliable. And that's a little bit, that's discouraging. It's counterproductive to the wellness of this area. And so we just have to keep, I think the working group is on a solid path. I think it'll eventually come out that way. But there are a lot of winds blowing around right now that they're trying to disrupt that without knowing what really is happening in our society today. So anyway, we'll handle it at the RDWG, I'm sure, and we'll see where it goes.
Thanks, Clarence. Anything else on that? All right. Foothills Little Bow meeting, the regular one, will be September 20th. Just information about that. Councillor payment sheets. Questions? Or a motion to accept? Tracy moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Checks for payment. Item 9.7. Any questions on the payment register? 9.8. There's also information on under that same heading on the tax refund register, and usually these are overpayments of some sort. Fairly significant one I'd be curious about. The first one listed, does any Lane or Kevin know? $13,000 one, what it might be about?
Have to find out. We'll look into it.
Sure, no worries. And there's also the direct debit register, and if there are no questions on those, get a motion for the acceptance of payment. Anne Marie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Functions of council. I know that as your chair and Reeve, I have a little bit of leeway in functions of council. There will be some things, I think, related to the shallow gas business that will probably be coming up, just so you know. Committee reports. I love it. Everybody shuffles it back and forth, and it's like, there's still nothing on it. What I would say is that most people have given their reports. This meeting today feels like we're on holiday still. It's interesting, but we've got a few minutes. I will just fill you in a bit on stuff that's been happening with me, and I might just go. Of course, we all have a meeting Monday with our MLA, so I hope everyone can be there. On Sunday, Global Village is hosting a newcomers information session on education and immigration and a whole bunch of things that I'm reluctantly having to attend. It's a Sunday. I'm not going to be at the county golf tournament, but I hear some of you are able to go. Perfect. Anne-Marie, Brian, Kevin, of course. You there? No? And this is the second year in a row. Last year I had a wedding out in Vancouver, but this Pollockville professional bull riding thing, no, not bull, bronc. Our daughter-in-law, of course, is Lindsay Horner, and you got to be there. And we were there the first year, and it was pretty amazing. Well, you've got to see the growth. It's like, if you don't get your fifth wheel out there right now, you're going to be 3 miles from the action. And anyhow, it's all quite amazing, only in Pollockville. Tomorrow morning, I have a meeting with somebody from the University of Alberta who has been wanting to interview me for a long time about annexation, of which I know very little or have not a great deal of interest. And I tried to put them off. I said, if you're in the area, sure. Anyhow, tomorrow morning they've got me booked. So I'm sure they'll be big time disappointed, personally. Yesterday I had an interesting interview at 4 o'clock with Alberta Views, which is, I don't know if any of you have ever seen that magazine. It's a magazine that comes out once a month, and it's sort of a cool little magazine. It's sort of quite left-wing, I thought, the last time I read it, but they interviewed Ron Wixon also, and I thought it was something on our regionalization work, perhaps, but it was more to do with healthcare in our region, and in the past, they have done community profiles, but now they're starting to do constituency profiles. So I said, so you'll be doing Medicine Hat as well in this. The guy didn't think he thought he had enough information, that he had a story already. So I'm not sure. Ron had obviously talked lots about the Bassano project, and I threw in stuff about our area, our community. He was a very interested in our community type of guy. So it was quite a delightful interview, just to educate him on all the wonderful things that we have and the strengths of our municipality. And he knew about the shallow gas, and he didn't understand how we were going to be refunded. So I explained the municipal tax and the education tax, and he was happy to understand all that. And I look forward to seeing, you never know when these reporters write things, how it'll come out. But he said, I thought it was great, and we had fun. Regional Working Group, of course, I also did an interview to do with Newell Regional Tourism Association. They have a consultant who is out of Houston and Calgary who wanted to talk to different people. Did other people get called to that, Anne-Marie? Did they call you at all? No? Okay, I don't know. Anyhow, I went and spoke to him on July 16th for an hour as well. Yeah, other than Regional Working Group, and that is keeping us busy. Anything else on committees? All good? Perfect. Is everybody here? Yeah, everybody is here. Let's start early. That would be wonderful. Let's go to item 7.1, the RCMP quarterly reports, and we'll start with John. Thank you. Everybody's keen to get back to the sun.
Good morning.
Morning, John.
My report is for the April-June 29th time period. During this time period, our department placed a focus on speeding in construction zones, which is as per the provincial traffic safety calendar. Our department during this time issued 48 warnings and 56 tickets overall, and joint operations were conducted with the RCMP, Fire Department, and the Provincial Park Rangers. I myself also attended the Rural Crime Watch meeting, and our department also attended training on snake awareness, which was quite interesting, and I attended a training and conference session in Red Deer. As well, our department assisted with bike rodeos for the Alcoma and Tilley School, which is teaching bike safety and bike skills to the kids. As well, our department is continuing to utilize the speed signs to educate the motorists on their speeds and for data collection to help our department. Enclosed is my report, which provides further information on the tickets versus warnings that was issued by our department. And I'll open if there's any questions or on the report.
Questions for John? John, do you guys get many, are you involved with Emerson, for example?
Yes.
Occasionally, or
yes.
No issues much?
No, it's been, knock on wood, pretty quiet. Ironically, Emerson was one of the things with the snake awareness that we actually thought about, because talking to the campground host down there, I mean, she's come in contact with primarily, it sounds like bull snakes.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, you know what, it wouldn't be a bad idea just to educate ourselves. If we're in that area and somebody asks, at least we can have some feedback that we can give the public to say, well, stay away, or, you know, and stuff like that. Because really, at that point, our department only had very much limited information on snakes and you know, what's the best practice, how to deal with them. So that's funny when you say Emerson. That was one of our thoughts about when we saw this training. We're like, why would we, you know, look at her when Emerson came up? But okay. No, it's been again pretty good for Emerson, for quiet. I've nothing from the host, campground host, saying that she's had any issues. So yeah, so far so good.
Good. Other questions? All right, we will move on to Sergeant Zanadine.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Morning.
Good morning, Chris.
So I think you guys should all have a copy of my report. Let's get right into it. It's second quarter, April to June 2019. So For this period, we had 429 rural calls for service within the County of Newell. 158 prisoners were lodged in cells, mostly municipal prisoners, but that's just the combined amount. And 160 criminal record checks were completed for the rural. We had 49 motor vehicle collisions, of which 2 involved injuries and 2 other ones involved fatalities. Now, to have 2 fatalities in a quarter is pretty rare. And to have 2 fatalities on Highway 1 in a quarter is really rare. So it was, you know, a bit of an anomaly. I kind of get into those here in the significant events. So April 7th, Brooks members responded to a complaint of a vehicle driving erratically on Highway 1 east of Brooks. The vehicle was driving all over the road at erratic speeds and in and out of the ditch. Members responded and found the vehicle on the Highway 873 overpass. Members found the driver to be extremely intoxicated. He was taken to the detachment for breath samples, which were twice the legal limit for driving. He was also prohibited from driving, so you can be suspended provincially or you can be suspended under the criminal code. He was suspended under the criminal code. The only way you get that way is for a criminal driving conviction previous, which was why he was prohibited. So it's not his first rodeo. The result of the investigation, a 51-year-old Okotoks man is charged with impaired operation of a motor vehicle, driving over .08, dangerous driving, and driving while prohibited. So you don't often see dangerous driving tacked on when it's impaired, but we will lay both of those charges when there's a lot of evidence to show that, you know, you put other people at risk. I mean, you know, that could have easily been a third fatality or more on Highway 1, right, in the same quarter. So good to get a complaint. Often we don't get those complaints in time. We got that complaint in time, and we got there, you know, fairly quickly. So that was a positive. April 10th, Brooks RCMP received a complaint from the Duchess Minor Hockey Association of a significant fraud. The investigation revealed that the association was a victim of a fraud over $5,000 that occurred between April 8th and 9th, and the suspects were unknown. It was a very lengthy investigation, lasting several months, involving close to 10 production orders for banking information, internet IP addresses, email accounts. And as a result, we did identify several suspects. We have laid charges are pending against a male and a female from Ontario, and we're still investigating a third person who we've identified as well. So although sometimes you can't get blood from a stone depending on their circumstances, you never know if, you know, there's a conviction. You know, there's always that chance for you know, restitution, because I mean these associations aren't making millions of dollars, right? They're, you know, running to keep going for the next year. You know, I'm part of the, you know, my kids play hockey here, so I know what it's like. You know, that can be a pretty big hit. So it was really positive. Often, you know, especially when there's charges from other jurisdictions, you know, we don't find out who they are. But it was a lot of hard work, especially on the part of Constable Ali Basir. He's the one that wrote all these production orders, which are usually quite lengthy and quite tedious, and you got to serve them all over. So it was a really positive investigation. So I'm hoping I can update it next quarter with some more details on that. April 16th, Brooks members responded to a single vehicle rollover on Highway 1 near Range Road 124. Lone occupant of the vehicle was ejected from the vehicle and died on scene. The roads were clear and dry at the time. Drugs and alcohol were not considered factors. You know, you get collisions like that when the only person, you know, isn't able to tell you what happened. Sometimes we never know. Was there an animal? Was it distracted driving? Who knows? You know, we're confident it wasn't mechanical, it wasn't drugs or alcohol, it wasn't road conditions. One thing I can say is seatbelts save lives. Not can't say for sure if that would happen on this case, but keeps you inside the vehicle, and that definitely is important. So it was a pretty unfortunate call to have to go to, but yeah, that was our first fatality of the quarter. May 22nd, Brooks members responded to a report of a break-and-enter at an oil well site in the Patricia area. Suspects stole approximately 375 feet of copper wire valued at approximately $500 from this location. June 3rd, Brooks RCMP responded to a 2-vehicle collision on Highway 1, eastbound at Range Road 150. RCMP, fire, and EMS arrived to find 1 driver deceased in the vehicle and the passenger seriously injured. Pickup truck was traveling southbound on Range Road 150, crossing Highway 1 when it struck an eastbound SUV, so I mean obviously that's right at JBS. The driver of the pickup truck did not suffer serious injury. The RCMP collision reconstructionist attended, I believe from Calgary or Red Deer, seen and assisted with the investigation, which is still ongoing. June 21st, Brooks RCMP received information that a male known to police was living in a stolen motorhome at the West Side Campground. Members attended and confirmed the motorhome was stolen from Calgary. It was almost new and had only been used by the owners twice before it was stolen. Members recovered numerous items believed to be stolen, along with a quantity of methamphetamine and crack cocaine, and obviously recovered the motorhome. Resolved the investigation. A 35-year-old man currently living in Medicine Hat is charged with numerous property and drug offenses. He wasn't a stranger to this area either, so we've dealt with him in the past, so it was good. It was information from the public that we would not have got this guy if we didn't get that information. That's why we're always pushing Crime Stoppers is important. Just letting us know, pointing us in the right direction, we'll take it from there, which is what we did in this case. June 25th, Brooks RCMP concluded a months-long investigation into rural break-and-enters and thefts in the county of Newell, with 2 search warrants being executed in the area of Idosley and Bantry Bay. So if you look at the stats that I had included, we had 11 break-and-enters in this quarter, which were mostly rural oil field thefts. As a result of the investigation, a 54-year-old male and a 40-year-old male, both of the county of Newell, are charged with a combined 24 charges, including break and enter, possession of stolen property over $5,000, possession of stolen property under $5,000, trafficking in stolen property, and possession of break-in instruments. The accused were targeting mostly rural oil field sites. This investigation will have a significant impact on rural crime in the area, particularly break and enters. In this area, as the accused are believed to be responsible for many of these rural oil field break-and-enters. Cooperation from local businesses and the energy company were crucial in bringing this investigation to a successful conclusion. So I ran the stats today. From the day of this search warrant until today, we've had no rural break-and-enters. So although we can't necessarily, they're stealing copper wire, heavy lead batteries, right, recycling them. We couldn't say definitively that they were responsible for every one of these, but we haven't had any since that day. It was a significant file, involved a large amount of members. We conducted both of those search warrants simultaneously, so it took a lot of members and a lot of planning, especially when they're rural. They see you coming a mile away. It's significant planning because you want to catch people involved in the operation, right? Because otherwise you might find some property, but if you can't pin somebody to it, it doesn't help the situation. So I believe that this group were responsible for the spike that we saw in this quarter, and I think the fact that we haven't had any since would point to that direction as well. So that really took a significant victory, I think, for us on that front. New corporal has been selected to replace Walter Goliath, who left in April for the Northwest Territories. This promotion is currently awaiting approval from the National Promotions Unit, so I got indication yesterday that it looks like it's going to be good to go. It's just sometimes it's a bit of a slower pace in the summertime trying to track down the people with the right authority to sign off on that. So I'm hoping next week or two I'll have confirmation that's good to go. We had a new member start with the detachment in June. Constable Taryn Banger comes from Delta, BC. He speaks English, Punjabi, and Hindi. These languages are an asset to the city of Brooks. He started on a Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, he was already using his language skills with somebody we had arrested. So it was he hit the ground running and was a good addition to our office, especially on that front. We have another new member starting July 28th. From Spruce Grove, will be moving to Brooks with his spouse. We have another guy starting September 23rd. He's also from Spruce Grove. He's a plumber gas fitter for a number of years. A little bit older to be starting the career. I think he's early 30s, but talked with him at length yesterday. Pretty excited to get going. Typically tradespeople, if they're good at working on their own, good at following directions, good at figuring things out. So I think we'll be set up pretty well, and that should put us, I think, on the constable front, should be full. I think there might be one soft vacancy. We have one member that's leaving for major crimes, like our homicide unit in Calgary. But I think other than that, it should put us pretty close to flush. So we've been staying on top of things this summer. It's been a little bit busier. Like you look at the stats, we've had a few more assaults than we've had, typically last year. Again, break and enters were up. I discussed kind of, what I thought were the reasons for that. So I think overall we're looking pretty good for the rest of the summer going into the fall. So that's my report. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Chris? Brian?
In regards to when you have a higher incident on a particular intersection, and I'm referring to the JBS one where we've had several over the years, and do you align your patrols, or is there a cognizant awareness that you dedicate more staff to those places, or how does that work?
So we'll try to sit out there at shift change, right? And I've seen on social media people ask, why don't they post police out there, at shift changes and this and that. I mean, it's not feasible, right? And that intersection's pretty narrow, and I've got some opinions I'm happy to discuss with you guys at some point on what I think could maybe contribute to a little bit more safety in there, whether it be an 80 zone through there, what have you. Like it's especially at 3:30 and then at 12:30, I'm not sure what the evening is. Like it's definitely probably our highest risk to public safety would be that intersection, and some of it might be driver experience, but in my opinion, I think it's just the sheer volume of vehicles that are coming through there, whether it be people on Highway 1 that just don't know. It's similar to Suffield when you see at 4:30 when the base is over, but it's far more volume than that, and more concentrated out of there. So enforcement is one thing, but we can't hold people's hand across that intersection, and we can't slow, nor can we sit there and slow traffic down, because that doesn't solve the problem. You put your lights on, people don't do what they're supposed to be doing either. So it's the volume, and I think there's a few things that might could be discussed to maybe help with that a bit, but.
Just to continue that, and I don't know if you're aware, we have met with transportation as far as improvements and different considerations. I know Jeff has gave us a report last time on at our council meeting in some of those instances. So I'm curious whether you're engaged in that, and whether you have an opportunity to provide that feedback, because I think it would be valuable in order to come up with solutions that involve that intersection. And I guess when I've brought it up before at when it comes to the patrols, and again, I'm not suggesting how you do your job, but at the end of the day, it does, when you have places like I've used the Chestermere speed trap, I call it. There's very few times that people go through that now because of the high enforcement that was done there, that people aren't dropping their speed down to 80 clicks. And so I don't know whether that's something that's been considered or not, and I guess that's why I bring it up. So.
Yeah, I certainly would be more than willing to discuss, give you my opinions if it was a meeting with Alberta Transportation. I haven't discussed it with them, but I definitely have some ideas. I know the Chestermere one is a great example. We have a traffic unit. We have 5 Alberta sheriffs that are responsible for this area. I'm sure you'll see oftentimes it is Alberta sheriffs at that spot in Chestermere as well. Our traffic unit is out there as well, but again, they have Hanna, Oyen, Bassano, Redcliffe, Bow Island, and Brooks to look after too. But enforcement is definitely a big piece there. I don't typically get people speeding. I was on highway patrol in this area for almost 3 years. I typically don't get people speeding, much over the limit in that stretch. But again, when the volume is as big as it is at those points, it could be pretty easily argued that 110 is too fast for that area, but that's not for me to decide. I can give my opinion. I'd be more than happy anytime, Brian, to discuss that, whether it be with you guys or, in conjunction with Alberta Transportation. I've got a few ideas, how we could help. Again, the lanes getting onto there are pretty short too, right? Especially when you're looking eastbound from 150 into Brooks, you don't have a very big, very big lane to get back up to speed, or there's vehicles coming across. I've seen a few times where people misjudge and they go across, but people aren't able to go from the stop sign eastbound, so they get stuck hanging out on the highway too. That's a pretty common thing. I know some of the members in our office have some ideas about, and just because I think JBS would be a pretty important partner at that table as well, about whether it be access, how they can access their parking lot, if they can do it from coming on Highway 1 or only off Gun Club Road or out the back. Like I think there's quite a few parts to it, and I think we would play definitely a part in that as well.
Oh, Clarence?
Excuse me. I'm just wondering if you've seen any change in the environment, well, we'll call it the environment after legalization of marijuana.
I've seen, I'd have to look at our stats, but I haven't, the sky didn't fall like some people thought it might. I thought we would see bigger problems than we have. I work, I do lots of traffic stops. I work quite a few nights still, just to kind of keep on top of things, see what my people are facing out there. And I think maybe I've come across 2 offenses in all my times. People, have open marijuana in the vehicle or whatnot. I don't think we've done very many drug impaired by marijuana. I know Sebastian, one of his guys just had a drug impaired the other day that our drug recognition expert went to, and it wasn't marijuana, it was something else. So I certainly haven't seen, anecdotally a big spike in whether it be traffic safety or, I never come across people I haven't seen it yet, in Brooks anyways, people, smoking it out in a public place, or, I stayed out at Rolling Hills for a week, a couple of weeks ago, and a week out at Newell camping, and never came across it, it at all. So I haven't seen it as a significant change at all.
That's interesting. I just finished camping at Kimbrook for a few days, and one of the people I was camping with said, "Can't you smell that?" And I go, "No, I'm stuffed up. I can't smell anything." So it was funny, and her husband said, "So it doesn't matter if you smell it anyhow. Relax. What's the big deal?"
And in fact, in provincial parks, you can walk around anywhere in the park using it, not even just confined to your campsite, which is pretty surprising to me that you're able to do that. If you're having a few drinks in your campsite, it doesn't affect anyone, but if you're smoking marijuana, you can tell pretty easily at the site next to you. So, but yeah, I haven't picked up much, in any of my time out there. So
not much has changed. Chris, Jeff is in our gallery here today, and Jeff Tiffin has been involved with JBS in the intersection. So if I could suggest that if it's at all possible for you guys to connect before you leave, if you have time.
100%. Yeah,
it would be awesome. And if Jeff has time,
you bet.
Who knows, involving the RCMP might just push us over some of our mountains we've been trying to work through with AT. So
I'm available anytime to email me, phone me. I'll come out to any meeting. That's not a problem. That's why I'm here. So
you bet. All right. If there's nothing else for Chris, we'll ask Sebastian to take the hot seat. Go for it. Welcome.
So just button here. Okay.
Yeah, all good.
So good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So we met last quarter. My results are based on the first quarter, and that's April to June. Bassano is in charge of Rosemary, the Bassano area, Gem, and Hussar. I won't be talking about Hussar because it's not in your area. I've been sending you guys reports about Bassano and Rosemary as well, because a lot of the residents are your guys' constituents because they live in the county roads. I'll go into the first quarter progress first. When I spoke with you, I've spoke with each council as well about what their priorities are. They've picked community visibility, so engagement, property crime, and safe roads. So I'm going to go on to community visibility. I've preached, and my members, I'm very proud of them, have really been doing community engagement. One of that has been tracking school visits. So we did 50 school visits between the month of April and June 30th. That includes talks about drugs, safe driving. If the school has an area or an issue they'd like us to bring up, that's what we bring up. It doesn't include just walkthroughs. It means actually talking to students and being in the school. So we did 50 school visits between Bassano, Gem, and Rosemary. Hussar doesn't fall in our school area because they do not have a school in our area. Major events, we participated in the Bassano Rodeo, where all the members marched and surged, as well as the Rosemary Canada Day, July 1st, where all the members, including myself, marched. It's been a while since I've marched, so it was pretty interesting. I've noticed that residents and in our area are very happy with seeing us around town, being there positively as well. It's also helped quite a bit in enforcement and preventative, and I'll get into that as we go further into the report. Contribute to safe roads. During that quarter, we did 104 speeding tickets, seatbelts, warnings. Tickets all across the board. This was on Highway 1. This was in the county roads. This is all in our attachment area. We've seen an increase in tickets just on between Bassano on that Highway 1 of people speeding through. So I've had members each shift go out and start running radar and making sure that the roads are safe. With the new legislation, as I discussed when I was here in April with the new MAS, we've stopped 250 vehicles for sobriety, which I think has been a huge improvement in that we've had 10 proactive impaired charges, which for us last year we had 10 in total for the year. So in 3 months we had 10 more people caught impaired. So for me, I can only speculate. I don't think that this year there's just more people driving intoxicated. I think that we just have better tools now where we can catch people, which also makes the roads safer. With this being new legislation, we've also done some programs to help community residents understand why it's so important. So we've done talks. We did a town council in Bassano with the residents. We also did an initiative during the rodeo where we pulled over 20 drivers, and in partnership with businesses, everyone who blew a zero got gift cards to like Subway and stuff like that. And they got an explanation of why everyone is being required to blow. What was also great is by doing this, we caught someone who was 2 times over the limit, blew a 200, and and speaking to the member, you couldn't tell they were impaired. They had ate a bottle of toothpaste, was an alcoholic, so a lot of times you can't see the signs. Blew, and luckily we were able to get them. So it just shows how much it really does help. I know it can be an inconvenience to people. I actually was required to blow when I was driving through to Calgary. It can be a short inconvenience, but that short inconvenience can help stop the next person from injuring or hurting someone. Rural crime. That's always a priority for our area, especially in Bassano. We've had a huge increase in copper thefts around, and I think the same as Zanazine had said, with oil field sites. For the month of May and June, we had almost $75,000 in copper theft. Now, to explain that, that's not, the copper actually isn't worth that much. It's the cost of them re-putting the copper in. So in order for us to help curb that and prevent that, what we created at Bassano is a new intelligence program where we're working with our analysts to track of, these guys are, a lot of them are from Calgary, and they're coming into these areas with stolen vehicles. They're stealing the copper and they're going to the recycling facilities. And these recycling facilities sometimes are asking for ID, sometimes aren't, but they are tracking. So what we've worked out with CPS is whenever one of our our known offenders is there. They track us with the list, and then we can work from there. This has helped us we did a total of 4 arrests now for copper theft. 2 guys we actually caught. We got lucky. We had people in the community who told us there was a suspicious person. We caught them actually in some interesting getup and on camera. Rock Point was one of our big targets that's been hit about 4 or 5 times. And in consultation with them, they've created cameras and we've created more patrols in the area. And based on that, actually, once they hit the cameras in our patrols, that's when we caught the 2 guys who were stealing the copper. So we've seen a huge reduction in it just by preventative, them seeing us. Part of my crime prevention is actually getting us out there, which is I call proactive rural crime patrols. So that doesn't include if you get a call to the area, it has to be a proactive and they have to be in the area at least 45 minutes. And I track it, they track every time they've done it. So we did 105 proactive patrols between April and June. And what that entitles is going to all our oil field sites, putting our card to let them know we're there, talking to them, being in the area. We can't always, it's a huge detachment area for us. So we can't always be there, but if we're there as much as we can be, then it really does help. Luckily, with my area, crime is a lot lower than a big town like Brooks and stuff. So we have the capabilities and we're fully staffed to make that extra step to be in our rural areas and make sure the farmers and people feel safe to know that we're there. The other question I had for you is I've been sending you guys mayor's reports. And I've also been sending you one for Gem because Gem doesn't have representation, but also Rosemary and Bassano's. I thought that was important to send you guys those ones, which I do send to their council as well, was because you have a lot of residents who are in the county renewal. I just want to make sure, can I continue to do that? Is there any issues with my mayor's reports, or if you're happy? I always like feedback to see where I can change.
Oh, I think it's good to get the information from our communities. GEM is just part of the County of Newell.
Yeah.
We're going to rebel and leave, taking my 600 people with me. Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
I represent GEM at this table.
Okay.
And that's just the division I live in. Just for your information, Sebastian.
And we also had an increase, not in this quarter, but a new quarter of people going into vehicles that were unlocked from the outside of the area. So we actually had FIS come down and do fingerprints, and we actually have identify some suspects. But we've also been doing proactive information to our Bassano newspaper. We're going to start a weekly tips where we give people, remind residents, make sure you lock your truck and car doors at night and in town. Because a lot of times in our areas, when they're getting thefts like that, it's not from local residents. It's Bassano and Rosemary is a pass-through through the highway. You have people who are going through, doing these crimes and then taking off before we can catch them. So a huge preventative is reminding them to lock the doors and letting them know if there's suspicious people in the area to let us know. So that's what our new initiative is going to start for the next month.
Great. Any tough questions for Sebastian? How'd your ball team do?
Oh, we did. They were a lot older than us, but we had a great time. It was good. It was fun. I only got hit once.
Sebastian coaches ball, little guy's ball, which is wonderful. And your wife as well is involved,
yes, she helped
correct?
me out too this year.
Yes. And I finally got to one of the practices because Jace is our grandson.
Oh, okay.
And it was so funny. I have never watched a funnier ball game. I love that all you did mainly was practice skills to begin with, and there's about a 15-minute ball game at the end. And unbelievably funny because as soon as someone hits the ball, which is rare in these, parent pitch or Sebastian pitch, I think it was, everybody just runs, like off the bench, out off the field, off their bases. They all run to the ball. And all the parents and grandparents I wasn't yelling, but parents are yelling, "Don't run, get back to where you're supposed to be." The kid who actually touches the ball with his bat doesn't know where to go because it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. I loved it. And unfortunately, we were away for the final game and your little round barbecue or whatever you did. But thank you for being involved in the community that way, because that's so important to Sebastian and something that Bassano would really appreciate, and us rural people who are part of it.
I appreciate it. I love that part of the job, and just being a part of my community where I live, I think is huge. So
Yeah.
thank you. It was fun, T-Ball, to be honest.
I couldn't believe you were having fun personally.
Yeah. They listen a lot more than some members, so. No.
You did great. Thank you for that. And thank you for your report.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. And Jolene, it's great to see you here today, so maybe you can join us at our table as well. And if there's any questions for the Safe Communities or from the report, you can.
Sorry I haven't been able to make the last two. It's always fallen when we've had a bike rodeo one day and another program the last couple Thursdays. So
And that's just
I feel
no
like I haven't
problem.
been here in person for a while.
No, it is a while, but you know what? We appreciate what you're doing out there. That's important.
Yeah.
More important than coming here to report. Your reports are always excellent, so all good.
So my reports for April, May, and June. First, I attend a lot of community meetings just to keep up with trends, and I assist in a lot of projects that go on. So these meetings include Early Childhood Development Coalition, Brooks and District Drug Task Force, Brooks and District Victim Services, Brooks and District Resiliency Committee, Brooks Local Immigration Partnership, and Brooks Action Against Violence Committee. And so one special project through the Drug Task Force, we have started partnering with the radio stations on the block parties that have been going on, and they've been fantastic so far. And so we're hoping to have one out in the county communities, I think is for next month or then the month after. So they're great, and they say crime prevention, knowing your neighbor is like a very important part of that. So really encouraging everyone to get to know each other, and it's amazing how many people didn't know the people living next door to them. So that's great. The trade show, which seems a long time ago, but our Safe Communities Committee partnered with the SAD students, and our messaging regarded around lock it or lose it. Like Sebastian said, it's amazing how many people don't lock their vehicles and crimes of opportunity. So we handed out crime prevention tips and then sheets for recording serial numbers of property. That way, if something does go missing, much easier to get it back to you. Crime mapping, I still do the crime mapping. You guys probably know about that. It's on your website. Media relations, still doing up media releases for the newspaper and the radio station. It's nice the radio station can have things on there quick. And car seat clinics. We do our monthly car seat clinic at the fire hall every third Monday from 1 to 3, and then we've also started doing them at Davis in the evenings, and then we're going to be starting to do IGA as well. And our joint force operation, we pull vehicles over. We tend to go to the Greenbrook-Sutherland intersection. The traffic through there, we're really hitting our target groups too, and there's lots of traffic. We found we've done one in Bassano, and you get a few people that have their vehicles. Most people walk to the parent and tot groups, but we still get people from Rosemary, Dutchess, Bassano coming through our check stops in the city. And that way we can get 30 car seats, are generally how many we do in the 2 hours. And like amazing, I've seen car seats not even in at all, or the kids aren't buckled in, and one's not my favorite, but it was tied in with like a cell phone charger. So that's what they're using. So we're just really trying to push that education and help people, because there's just lack of knowledge out there. Bike rodeo season. The summer seems to be always full of bike rodeos. Now that we have our trailer, it's been awesome. We've set up the full course all across the county. We did Tilly, Alcoma, Dutchess, City of Brooks summer camp, and then a community bike rodeo at Canadian Tire. So we just rotate, but now with the trailer we got with the grant last year, we're able to offer the county students the same bike rodeo as the ones in the city. Some of the schools said, oh, our students can't bring their bikes to school. I said, no problem. That's why we have these here to bring it out there, and they really love it. And presentations, I deal with all the PR requests. So June's always busy with school tours, city and county. And then we had an RCMP town hall meeting I helped with, and we did a youth rural safety day in Bassano for students from grades 3 to 6 from Bassano and GEM. And we had our mock car crash on April 30th. That was for all grade 12 students across the city and the county. The purpose of this day is to remind teens of the repercussions of dangerous driving and encourage safe driving practices as we headed into summer and graduation season. So we had great feedback, and we want to continue this as a biannual event. And just here in July, our Early Childhood Development Coalition works with Alberta Conservation, and we do Kids Can Catch. So on Free Fishing Weekend, we set up a big event. We had, I think, 80 kids and then their parents out at the Brooks Aqueduct Trout Pond, and we just encourage people to get out fishing together, and then spending that quality time together is very important. The kids get to take home a free fishing rod, and we have lunch, so it's a really fun day, and we had good weather, not like the wind last year, so it was good. Yeah. That's all I have for the 3 months. If you have any questions?
I was intrigued by, under your community meetings, how many different groups there are within our community.
There's lots, yeah.
Working to make things better. I mean, I think there's 7 or 8 listed right there, and that isn't even close to all of them.
No, it's not even all of them right there, yeah. I really enjoy being a part of those, and summer sure slows down without those meetings going on, so you notice. Yeah.
Well, I don't see any questions, Jolene. Oh, Hubie.
Yeah.
Do you think we should have John at the Safe Communities meetings with his report?
Oh, yes, we were talking about that, weren't we?
I think we should have him bring a report there, and he could come to the meeting too.
Yeah, because the peace officers from the city come, so yeah, we could certainly have John, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks, Jolene.
Thanks
have
for
a good
having me.
rest of the summer.
Yeah,
It
you
goes
guys too.
fast. Yeah, you bet. All right. We are at Joint Services Committee. I think those minutes get circulated, right? Everybody's been getting them, or no? Tracy's saying yes. I wasn't at the last meeting, so. Kevin? No? Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I ended on
Yeah.
my mic here, but and I think most of the things were discussed at that city-county meeting post, the one that we had after our last council meeting, most of the pertinent ones. So the only thing that I had on my list as far as that meeting was that quinoa is being growing in the county of Newell. Yeah, in Rolling Hills. Yarmil Tilma grows quinoa. Yeah. Yeah, thought that was sort of neat.
Post-agenda items. I had put Halo on, and I sent you out an email, and just for your information, and I guess we'll wait and see what it is, but I do know that at our Southeast Mayors and Reeves meeting that was at the end of June at the same time as the PEP annual general meeting, Gordon Reynolds, who is now the chair of the Southeast Mayors group, mentioned that they were having issues staying alive, Halo, and he threw out a sum of money. He said, do you think that, your county would support? And I said, you know what, Gordon, I have no idea. I really don't. It's something that I would have to bring here. So this meeting or this phone call, I think, is going to be the ask, or to see what people will support, if anything. And I'm not so sure. I want to find out more about. I mean, they've met with some MLAs, it said in the email, but the Minister of Health, everybody's budgets are on hold right now, and so I guess it'll depend how much money they're needing to tide them over. So we'll, and I don't think there's anything else we can do at this point until we find out what it was. Gordon said maybe about $5,000 or something. And I said, well, I think people, have to figure it out and have a plan. And so, any comments?
Long before I was on council, I was suspicious why we would have to have a standalone organization in Southeast Alberta. I still am. And I don't know how we can say it nicely, but I don't think there's ever been a real concentrated effort to make that more efficient.
With stars.
Right.
Yeah.
I could be totally wrong. They claim that they have, and that they work well together. But
no.
Anyway, I still have my doubts.
Right. Anyhow, that'll be the conference call, I guess, on Wednesday. I'll find out more about it. And if it's something that I'm sure they'll want a fast decision, I guess I can send you out information and see how people feel. And I hope to be able to get more information from even Nate Horner apparently has been part of this, so I hope to track him down this weekend and find out what actually is, how desperate they are and what's the scoop. So, all right. And the rest, post agenda is in camera. So, I want to move in. Tracy will move us in. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.